you go. All right. The last call, the call to end all calls. Or that's really not. I don't know why I said that. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, my computer is wanting to restart right now. Let me just snooze that bad boy. Okay. So 27 through 33. A lot of it I feel like wound up being like recap from telling us what happened with the people, the stories that he told early on. But I think there's still some good nuggets in here. Hopefully you guys were able to like take some time and write down your values or look deeply at them. I know I did not, and that's something that's on my to-do list. So if you're watching this in the replay or you're on with us now and you haven't done it, give yourself some grace because all we have is right now, right? So we can choose moving forward to do that. I think that having them down on paper, like he says over and over and over again, is so valuable in looking at longevity for working toward our values and less toward goals that aren't tied to our values. And so just knowing what those are so valuable. So go back and watch that values video and work through those, and we'll finish up the book tonight. I don't know about you guys, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I have learned a lot. And even if actually I was telling them, the people on the call, before I started recording, I think it's a relevant thought because my brain gave me the thought that no one's going to show up tonight. It's what happens at the end of every book. And what's the point? And then I had to fill that in with, even if nobody shows up on this call tonight, not one single person, I have gained so much from acting within my value of learning and adding value. Whether people show up or not, I cannot control. I can control me. I can control what I learn. And that is how we work this business. Like, we cannot control if people order from us. We cannot control if people are going to work this business with us or not. We cannot control if people are going to be crazy and cause drama, right? But we can control ourselves, and we can control our actions, and we can live within our values. And to me, that is so much freedom. I see a lot of leaders get really down on themselves and have a really hard time working this business or feeling like they're a leader because they feel like it's their responsibility to make people do the things and to make people be successful. And that's just not something that we can do. We can help people. We can help equip them. We can help set them in line with their values. We can give them the skills. I love that the book talks about sometimes if you are continuing to do the things over and over again and it's not working for you, maybe you need to go back and reassess and make sure you've learned things, because it truly is a learning process doing this. You never make it. If you're not learning, you're dying in this business. I truly believe that. Like, obviously, if you're not reaching out, your business is dying. But if you're not learning something new every day, I truly think that you are going to get stagnant in this business. And we constantly need to be evolving and growing and taking committed and valued action. So there you go. There's my opening. So do you have something, Ryan?
No, I agree. That was one of the key notes I made for tonight was, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. But then it talks about, what you've been doing over and over and over again isn't working, then try something different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of like key, because sometimes I do feel like I encounter a lot of people in this business. They're like, I've been doing all the things for 2 years now, and I'm not where I want to be. It's like, well, maybe you need to change it up. Maybe what you've been doing for 2 years, maybe you need to incorporate and do something a little different. Kind of like me, and in my recruiting, my personal recruiting, I feel like I've been doing the same type of recruit for 5 years now. Well, at some point, it kind of started slowing down for me. And so I had to enter the Instagram world, which I was resisting and avoiding, because that was my next right step. And it was a different step that I had to take. Because it was something different, because what I was doing for the last, couple of years hasn't been working. So that was one of my key takeaways in my notes.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I really liked going through, though I didn't write them all down in as much detail as I want. That's something that I plan to do when I start my new passion planner for the year, because it gives you space to do that. I'm really looking forward to going through those values and lining those up and looking at what my goal is and assessing to see if it really is attached to my value. Because I know for so long I had a goal to get to diamond. And when it came down to it, I didn't know what value was behind why I wanted to get to diamond. I have never, since the beginning of this business, really cared about the money. I was like, oh, the money will happen, and that's great if it happens, but I'm doing this because it's fun, because I'm helping people, and because it's a challenge for me. Those were the values behind what I was doing. And at some point it changed, it shifted in my brain, and I started attaching different meaning to it. And then it wasn't attached to my value, and it lost meaning to me. And so now that I've reassessed and I kind of went down one of those slumps of fusing with my negative thoughts about myself and who I am as a leader and all that stuff, coming out on the other side of it, I feel like I've been much more able to see my true value, which is adding value and not getting hung up on my thoughts about it, but truly just adding value is what lights me up. And I have to be able to face the fact that I can't control whether people want what the value I'm giving is, and I can't control if I have the same giftings or the same leadership style as other people. I can't control that. I can only control me. And there's so much freedom in that. And so I want to say that because I wound up going through the list of chapter 27 on page 183, the list of places to look through your values. And my biggest one was my employment. I don't feel great about it right now because I wasn't living within my values. And which when I'm not living within my value, it leads to shame. It leads to guilt traps. It leads to thinking all sorts of negative stuff, right? And so just shifting how I do this business in a way that feels good to me, not in a way that I feel like I should be doing it and should be doing this and should be acting this way and should be blah, 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 blah. It led me down a really negative path. And I now can see as I'm going back through this book how fused I was with thoughts and how often I was letting my thoughts run my life. And so the book, if nothing else, the book helped me with that for sure. So I also I love how he goes through this book and he goes through setting good goals for you. Because we talk about goal setting a lot. And this book can kind of feel like, well, he doesn't care about goals. He's only about values, but he is about goals. He just really wants you to be focused on goals that are within your values. So setting those meaningful goals, page 184 and 185, I wrote down the goals that I want, what I want that to look like. It was scary. I had lots of thoughts pop up as I was doing it, but I still wrote them down. Anyway, so if you haven't done that yet, go back through and set some goals for yourself that are based on your values. Nicole, I love how you broke down which value is underneath the goal. Yes. It's so eye-opening, isn't it? And especially reading that guy's story when he was like, I want to be rich. I want to be laying on a beach. But really it came down to he just wanted to be accepted. He wanted to feel comfortable with himself, dang, don't we all, and how much of that is coming, like how much is that behind our goals too, and if we can really attach to that, then we can really focus on what we're looking for instead of this arbitrary goal. That's good. It's good stuff. I love, and I've heard this through therapy, through social work school, but I love it every time somebody brings it back up, is that don't set a dead person's goal. I need to remember that every time I'm talking to my teammates and helping them set goals or working through that. Those dead person goals crack me up. Page 186, like, stop feeling depressed, all of those things. Like, don't ever skip IPAs again. It's like, come on, like, let's be real. A dead person can do that better. Anyway, I think that those are great and a good reminder.
All of that is really relevant. Sunny, I don't know if your team is actively knows what the last 90 days, you know what I'm talking about? Last 90-day challenge of the year. Like, I don't know if it actively does that, but it's something that my team last year, we went all in. I'm doing it again this year, but this is the perfect time for people that are doing that last 90 days to really utilize this, because it's broken it down so simple, and it basically says, if our goals really truly line up with our values, we're a lot more likely to achieve them. Mm-hmm. And so setting your goals for the last 90 days of the year, if you kind of will follow, that's kind of what I was doing as I was planning the last 90 day stuff, because I was doing that the same time I was reading this. Mm-hmm. It was brought me a lot of excitement about the goals I had set for the last 90 days, because I could clearly see they lined up with my values.
That's great. I think it's important. Well, I mean, we see it all the time. We set these goals as New Year's resolutions, and they fall flat all the time. It's because we put next to no thought into them, what the actual value is behind them. So that's good. I want to talk to you more about the last 90 day stuff. Maybe I need to dig into that a little bit more. I haven't ever done that before.
Yeah, I love it. And I can talk about that a lot at the end of the call if you want. And also I'll put another little plug in here too. So for people that really want to dive into clarity, and a big part of clarity has to do with knowing your values. So I am doing a group in January. It's going to be open to anybody. It doesn't cost money or anything, but it's a clarity group, and it will really help you map out and lay out a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this book. So I was kind of glad I stumbled upon it, because, every book kind of has a lot of the self-development books have layout of how you set your goals and how you achieve your goals. And I kind of want to mesh all that I've learned all into one place. But I'm going to be doing that in January, which will kind of come at the end of the last 90 days. So mm-hmm. I'll just put in a little plug there. I'll post it on your team page if you want, whenever I have the group up and running, so people can be a part of that. But I think it'll be really valuable for people in 2020, because it's vision. We've learned that while we were in Hawaii. 2020 vision is what our theme is going to be for convention. And so I think it'll be kind of exciting to have a super clear clarity with our vision mm-hmm. on what our plans are, not just with the business, but yourself too. So
mm-hmm. That's good, because you can't disconnect it. Yourself is your business is yourself. Yeah. You can't. We try to silo it. I think these are my goals in life and these are my goals in business. Well, in this business, it is your life. Most of us don't really have an office that we go to and we turn it off. We don't really want to turn it off, because how we connect with people, or the people we're connecting with, are the people that we're going to help the most. And so you can't really separate it. They're so intertwined. So that's exciting. I'm definitely interested in getting plugged into that and helping in any way that I can. Okay. Okay. So, vision casting. I meant to go back and so page 186 at the imagine yourself taking effective action and like working your way through everything that it means to drive a Lexus, to be in Hawaii, the sun on your skin, to visualize all of that stuff. I did many years ago now, which is crazy to say. I did a dream, a vision casting dream call, like just to vision, to set that vision of where we're going. And it may be similar, Ryan, to what you're thinking about doing for the clarity group. But he, like to really visualize yourself driving the Lexus, what your goals are, your sand on the feet in Hawaii, or speaking on stage, or paying your last college loan bill, right? Like imagine what that's going to feel like. And I love that. Ryan, was it Bob or was it Preston who made us do the freak out video? I couldn't remember who it was.
Oh,
Preston, wasn't it?
I think that was Bob.
Okay. Well, either way, one of them at the leadership, whatever it's called, meeting, conference, had us do a freak out call. And he said, all right, I want you to turn your phone on selfie mode in video, and I want you to make a video of how you're going to react when you hit your rank you're going for. When you hit diamond, what's it going to be like? And he said, and we're going to do it all at the same time. So no, he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, this is not one of those things you're going to watch the few people do it, but we're all going to do it. And so on my phone, I have a video of me looking at myself, freaking out about finally hitting that goal that I had been wanting and seeing and achieving. And I think that this is like exactly what the book is talking about. Just visualizing it and seeing it become reality can be so powerful for us. And
we did that together, Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? Your mom was there too. Do you remember we went and we put our butts in a Lexus before we had one? We picked it out. We knew what leather we wanted.
That's right.
We knew how it drove.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we really had a very clear vision of exactly how that moment was going to feel, and a little bit of what life was going to feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely did. And I knew exactly which one I wanted. It was awesome. Okay. All right. So he gives some good examples of how to set your goals and then like setting up the action plans. And it fits into the book we just got through reading the last time, Atomic Habits. He talks all the time about small little steps, like take the very next step. And so the action steps, what smaller steps are required to complete the goal? What resources, if any, do I need in order to take these steps? When specifically will I carry out these actions? Just really getting it specifically down.
That's what life coaches do. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, okay, really good life coaches, y'all, cost thousands of dollars. And I'm just telling you, they're totally worth it. But right now, if your next right step can't afford $7,000 for Preston Pugmire, then doing this action plan is what he would have you do, only he would walk you through it. But like if you are capable of walking yourself through these things, because I mean, this is what Preston did with me. It was like, I don't know. I'm just looking at this. I'm like, yep, that right there is exactly what Preston Pugmire did with me. So like writing that stuff down, and that's another thing that they make you do is like, I had to write it down. He actually has it out when he's coaching you, and he asks you these, I mean, he literally would ask me these questions. Okay, so the goal, here's the goal, which is something I had to email him, but then I actually had to like write it out, and he wrote it out where I could visually see it one-on-one on a call. So
Mhm.
sorry, but I'm just thinking, like, if you wish that you could have a life coach, just do this stuff if you can't afford it right now.
And like, okay, so why is it that we think that it's interesting to me that we feel like we need to have somebody there to like, but I'm like, I need the support. I need somebody to hold my hand and make me do the darn thing. Like when I had a financial planner, he had to make me fill out the stupid, and I have one sitting right here because I know I need to redo it again. Like, to make a stupid budget is like so big in my head, but just having somebody there to hold my hand. Instead, I could just pay attention to the thoughts that I'm having, what's shutting me down, like being aware of my thoughts could make the biggest difference, and I could be my own life coach if I chose.
Yeah, and sometimes we have blinders on too. Sometimes there are things that we're not necessarily seeing, and it just takes a few right questions so we can recognize a fear that we have, maybe, or maybe we're not thinking big enough, or maybe in our minds we're thinking, I just want to be rich. I'm not saying anybody on this call, but kind of like the guy, what was his name, Jeff, or I can't remember his name. It's like, well, I just want to be rich. Sometimes it takes some curious questions to like break down what it is. But
Yep. Something I think is also important, and we already talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to take the whole time on it, but we all start with some sort of skill set. And at some point, we are all going to reach a threshold of how far we can go before we need to learn something new, before we need a new skill, before we need therapy, before we need to get through whatever it may be. Like, and sometimes it's interesting because sometimes people will hit that on their road to silver. And some of us will make it all the way to senior ruby and then have a freak out and then realize how much we need to go through, like life and learning in order to keep going. But we're all going to hit that. And so sometimes the resource you need is actually a skill. And I think that's really important to focus on. Sometimes we have a skill that we still need to develop, and we have to be willing to admit that we need a new skill or that we need to be working on that. And so, like, when new people are starting this business, sometimes we need the skills to know how to reach out tactfully. I never like focusing on those things, on wording, and it seems all businessy and meh to me, but we need those skills. We need that. And so the Rock Your Network Marketing Business, what's the other, some other ones, Ryan, like that we read in the very beginning?
I think that when people are first starting out, Get Over Your Damn Self.
Is Big Al have one or something?
Yeah, but I don't recommend it.
I don't remember the name, but
Network Marketing Pro.
Yes.
But
GoPro.
Yeah. What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, I think, is a really good one when people are first starting out.
What'd you say? Were you going to say something, Tamar?
And Influence People.
I read that years ago. That was one of the best books I read.
GoPro?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Can't think of the author.
It was The Millionaire by Halftime is the one that people recommend that I don't recommend.
Yeah.
Because it's so old school.
Yeah, but there are some skills in there that are beneficial. Some of them I'm like, no. But
and business is kind of moving back that way a little bit. It is moving a little bit back to being more one-on-one, face-to-face, which is really what that one's about, because it didn't have as much
social media-ness in it. Okay, all right. We gotta cruise. So let's see. What are some of my favorite parts? If you guys have something that you want to talk about, please do. Just say it. Do your thing. I love that he just talks over and over again about how a values-focused life will always be more fulfilling than a goal-focused life, because we get to appreciate the journey even as you're moving towards your goal. And so, like, on this call tonight, I am moving toward my goal, even if no one showed up. I read the book, I've gleaned from it. And I love that when he's talking about how he, at the end of the book, how he's talking about how the struggle he went through to even write this book. I'm like, that is so relatable. Like the anxiety, the like feeling like he can't, all the gremlins that showed up. And he was like, I have to write the first sentence. And anyway, I think that's super encouraging, I think, just to see that happen in real life. Okay. Also, like what you were saying, Nicole, like what is this goal in service of? I feel like I need to just like post that on a Post-it note and keep it around my life all the time. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I think this goal is important? Who does it? Yes, GoPro by Eric Worre. Yes. Why am I pursuing this the way that I am? And is it adding to me? Or is it exhausting? You know, because often if it's not attached to a value, it's exhausting. But sometimes it's exhausting just because you need to push through and it's hard. So it's hard to differentiate that sometimes. But being in touch with your values and knowing what they really are is going to help. Let's see.
Question here, throw in just for like a discussion's sake.
Yeah.
Anybody else do the Dare to Lead book study earlier? I think it was earlier this year where was it a Dare? I think I'm like totally blanking out. It's late here. And Jessica, I think, led it, and we talked about values. And in Dare to Lead, she like whittles it down to like, really, you can only have like one, maybe two values. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. So I whittled mine down. And so this exercise was interesting, and I totally resisted it because I was like, this is going to take forever. And then I read the next chapter and was like, crap, he told you to go back and do it again. I was like, so I went back and I like did it again. And I felt like that was interesting. I almost wanted like a different word because like I have my two core values, and yes, everything kind of fits underneath them. It was helpful for me to look and say, you know what, just like straight up family time is a value. Like that is important to me. And that falls under like my larger umbrella of these bigger values. But did anyone else like kind of, I don't know, maybe not wrestle with it, but just maybe notice that difference? And I think I was trying to then like make sure that the exercise from this book, I was also like, okay, how does this fit and jive with the other exercise that I've done? Just felt like a lot. I think the exercise he had us go through felt like
it is a lot.
And I was like, crap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Well, that's all I got, is that it's definitely a lot when you start looking at it. I mean, it takes time, and I think like revisiting them and re-asking yourself the questions, and then like, yeah, well, and the bullseye is hard too, because then you're looking at all the categories at the same time, like, and trying to, it can be overwhelming. When I first did the bullseye, it was overwhelming to me, and I was like, I'm failing at all the things because none of the things are on point, but that's not the point of it. It's that you're making the main thing the main thing. And so I think as long as you have your two core, I don't think that's a problem. Was that like the question that you were asking?
No, it wasn't really a question, was it?
Kind of processing. Processing and relating. I'll relate back that it is difficult.
Well, I'll say this because I totally, okay, so I've been through this whole values exercise with a few different things. Sunny, did you take Lori Harrison's class?
I did. I wasn't in the same group as you.
Right, okay, but like she really focused in on this, and you could only pick two. And so I went through it all. I don't think I did it well. The two I picked, yes, are values of mine, but not my two main core ones, if you know what I'm saying. So whenever I did this, I actually liked it better because I felt like I kind of got to, in all of those categories, I kind of got to really narrow down what I value in multiple categories. So like, if that's making sense. And I really liked that more because I didn't feel as restricted and my mind was allowed to go. I don't know if that's making any sense, but no, I had the same feelings of it because it's so been drilled into my head. You know, you really only have two. Like, you know, you really only have two. But I liked the format of this because it gave me a little bit more freedom, I feel like. And that opened my mind up to being more open, and I actually got to narrow it down more than before. I don't know if that's making sense, but I had the same thoughts. Because what we did in Dare to Lead is really, really similar to what Lori Harrison had us do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's good. And okay, so I just wrote down how beautiful, again, back to the Jeff thing when Jeff was talking, like how beautiful it is, how beautiful therapy is, how beautiful those moments of clarity are to like realize what your true value is. And yeah, I think that's great. And I also put the great part about values-driven life is that they can be fulfilled now. We don't have to wait until we hit this massive goal. Again, I see so many people say, I'll be good when I get to Emerald. I'll be good when I get to Diamond. And then it'll mean that like, then I see this a lot in Enneagram 3s. My Enneagram 3 friends bust their butts because they think their meaning is going to come from that goal being achieved. And then I see so much burnout from that. And I have a 3 wing, so I see it. I get it. I feel it. But we're listening to him say we can find the joy in the moments in the middle. Not that they're not, but to have that permission kind of in my brain that it's okay to just be okay in the moment working toward that goal. Gives me so much more freedom. Okay, so 196, going back through these, what is the goal? What's this goal in the service of? What will it enable me to do that's truly meaningful? I think that's maybe as a leader, the best question we can ask anyone starting this business. And we do a pretty good job of that, right? Like, what drew you to Plexus? You know, like, where do you want this to take you? How's this going to help your family? We're kind of guiding people, like family may not be their core value, right? Or they may be single and not have a family yet, you know? And so we're kind of placing that on them. But just to ask people, why are you even doing this? What fires you up about Plexus? And asking ourselves that after we've been doing this for a long time to reevaluate, why am I doing this? Why do I love this so much? Anyway, so I think that's great. Also, I think that's it. What's one small thing I can do, say or do that would be more consistent with the real me, like just with the real value? But which helps you lead a fuller life, living by your values here and now, or making yourself miserable by constantly focusing on a goal you haven't achieved yet? That is like a slap on the face to me because I have done that.
I wrote out.
If you're living a goal-focused life, then no matter what you have, it's never enough.
Yep, I underline that as my number one thing because I can really truly look back on my life and recognize that I lived most of my life like that. You know, and a massive shift happened whenever I went to therapy because it massively shifts because you find value in other things, and actually talk about the whole success thing later in one of these chapters. Mm-hmm. But yeah, redefining success was huge for me. Yeah.
So I really also, like, as we're relearning to not focus on what we don't have, but to focus on what we do in the meantime, chapter 29, like, he talks about a lot about focusing on the negative thoughts in order to not give them power, right? To just acknowledge them. But I like that he has a chapter in there, even though it's quite short, on how to focus and expand the positive thoughts, you know, like to be mindful in, and I talk about this all the time, and I think I learned it when I was at an eating disorder. I was a part of an eating disorder panel as a student, and I learned, like they talked about, when you're going to have a brownie, have the best, don't go get a cosmic Little Debbie brownie. Go get the best, chewiest, carameliest, wonderful brownie and savor every single bite of what you're having. And that mindfulness, he talks about that. And if sometimes I need to just allow myself to enjoy those moments. We like wolf down our food and go on to the next thing we're supposed to be doing instead of thoroughly enjoying whatever it is we're eating. And I have done some mindfulness stuff of like, when you're eating something, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you taste? How does it feel? And like, because the real joy in eating is the eating part, right? It's the tasting. And so why do we skip over that so fast? And people say like, chew your food more. It's like, that's work. But really it's mindfulness, isn't it? Like to pay attention to why we enjoy what we're eating. Anyway, I think those are valuable mindfulness techniques to just be in the here and now in the moments we enjoy. Okay. Okay, so facing fear, F-E-A-R, fusion, excessive expectations, avoidance of discomfort, remoteness from values. I think I'm going to start making this a part of it. If anyone ever wants to do coaching with me on my team, this is what we're going to go through every time. Like we're just going to go through the fear acronym because this is where we get hung up like all the time. Like, especially like when people come in and they're brand new, they're like, I'm going to be gold next month. And I'm like, excessive expectations. Like, let's bring it back to what's realistic, you know, like I see it all the time. And sometimes it's just like learning how the compensation plan works, right? But like being reasonable in where we're going leads to less burnout, leads to people quitting less, you know? So take the next step, be willing to learn, be realistic with your goals, to expect to do it perfectly because none of us will or do or ever have in the history of this business.
I love identify what is the smallest, easiest step I can take that would bring me a little closer to achieving my goal. Yep. So for years on my way to Diamond, I had a note on my mirror that said, what is the next right step? Mm-hmm. Because when I felt stuck, I just had to reevaluate, where am I at? What is the one thing I can do right now in this moment that moves the needle closer to where I want to be?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. I also underlined like learning to ride a bicycle, learning to walk. We all get up and fall down over and over and over again. And then I got to thinking back to like a video that I made years ago, and I actually finally made it public on my YouTube page about how it took me 6 years worth of school. I did it in 5 years, but it took me 6 years worth of school to get a master's degree in social work. And at the senior Ruby level of my business, which is what I was when I made that video, I was making more than I was ever going to make doing my career for 6 years that I went to school for. But like, I forget about the 6 years of hard work and night classes and tests and studying. And like, we forget about all of that. And we get into this business and we're like, well, why isn't it just happening? It's just taking too long. Like, we have to be learning and growing and going to college, so to speak, if we're going to keep growing in this business. Like anything that's new. But for some reason, this is different, and it's like a little bit, anyone can step into it at any time, so we just kind of feel like it's supposed to just happen, but it really doesn't. Like it doesn't work like that. So I think that's a good reminder of why do we think that this should be any different. So avoiding discomfort, remoteness from your values, back to fusion, reason giving, all of this, I think is so valuable. That the chapter, this chapter is huge. Tamara actually asked me to be a part of one of her IPA groups and challenges and videos she's doing, and I'm going to do it on this fear acronym of why we get stuck, why we set these goals. It's because they're not attached to our value. It's one reason why we quit doing it. But we also get stuck in fusion. We get stuck in reason giving, like this isn't going to work anyway. What if all these people I reach out to hate me afterward? All these thoughts that we get in our head. And that's why we don't finish IPA groups. I think that's why we don't finish book calls, right? Like it's not our value. We don't necessarily value it as much as we should or whatever. I don't know. There's no value attached to it, so we don't pay attention to how important it is to us. So, I wrote down, we all know we need to be healthy. No one doesn't want to get fit. So why don't we all do it? This perfectly explains why. Let's see. The first thing we realize is that the reasons are just thoughts. The second thing is that thoughts do not control your behavior. Gosh, such a powerful statement for like getting out of our head and getting into like what we really want to do. Let's see.
Thoughts can influence your actions, but they don't actually control your actions.
Yes.
That was a big thing for me in this on 207.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of those personal development books really, really talk about like trying to reprogram and change your thoughts. So I spent so much time trying to convince myself that I stinking like vegetables. I love vegetables. You love vegetables. Why do you love vegetables so much? And the reality was I was lying to myself because I do in fact not like vegetables. So thoughts have a little influence over, but the reality is I controlled the actions, whether I put the vegetable in my mouth or not.
Right.
And that was
right. And you can eat the vegetable because you value your health.
Right.
There's no guarantee you're going to enjoy it. And you might not ever enjoy it, but you do it because it's your value.
Right.
And so, yeah. Okay, so I underlined reasons are not facts. I love that. All these reasons that our brains give us. And then it reminded me of somebody gave the example of, I'm too tired to do this. I'm like exhausted. All this stuff happened. And then you'd be surprised at how many people would turn around and their tune would change when they found out that their favorite clothing or shoe store was having a 50% off their 50% off sale racks. And you had to get there before they were all gone. And boy, you'd snap up out of that chair and you would be going to that shoe store. So like these reason givings are not facts. The fact is you're not too tired to work your business. I'm not too overwhelmed. I'm just not making it a priority. That's the truth. And so I love that part too. How do you tell an excuse from fact? And again, it kind of comes back to if the person you care more about than anyone else in the world were kidnapped and the kidnappers told you they will never release that person until you start taking some valued action, would you do it? And the answer is always yes. Always. And so that's how you can tell a thought from fact. So I'm going to start testing that. Okay. Like if my child were going to die right now, would I do the IPA today? Yes, I would.
Dave Ramsey actually does. I don't know if y'all have ever taken the Financial Peace University class. I don't even know if it's in all the same classes, but I remember the class I took, and this was way before Plexus. It was actually when my husband was in Kuwait. He was gone for 13 months away from me, and I took this class at this church that I didn't even go to at the time. And I remember thinking the thought of trying to have $1,000 emergency fund was so overwhelming to me. But then asked if the one person in your life was going to die in a week and you had to come up with $1,000, could you do it? It was a no-brainer. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, I'll find me $1,000 it really kind of puts things in perspective. Big time.
Yep. Oh gosh. I talked about this earlier on page 212 when he talks about the willingness to show up for himself, the willingness to write that book. And then I wrote, are you willing to show up for yourself? Like, am I willing to show up for me? Am I willing to show up for my family? That's sometimes in this business, we're just not willing. Like, I have had conversations with people and we've decided that Plexus is not for them right now because they are just not willing to have the emotions. They're not willing to be outside of their comfort zone. They're not willing to set aside time, and to have them keep trying to do it just sets them up for struggle and frustration, and we're all frustrated. And it's like, hey, if you're not going to take your products right now, that's okay. I always end somebody who's not taking their products regularly with, when you're ready, these products are ready for you. When you're ready to give these a real good 60 to 90 day shot, I want you to come back because they're going to work for you. And so I always leave that door open, but I have to be aware that not everyone's going to be willing to show up for themselves right then, for all sorts of different reasons. The same reasons why we don't show up for ourselves to work our business or to be present for our family some days, there's all sorts of different reasons, but it doesn't matter. I can allow them to go, that's fine. But to ask ourselves, to actually write down what thoughts, feelings, sensations, and urges am I willing to have in order to complete this goal? That hurts me to write. I have to be willing to feel really small. I am going to be okay with feeling like a failure. I hate that, but it's good because you're setting yourself up to expect it, Yeah. This was for me.
I wish I wrote down when it was talking about that. I wish I had this before I gave my diamond speech, because giving that diamond speech was a goal of mine at my first convention. When I listened to the diamond give the diamond speech, I said, I am giving that speech when I'm a diamond. And I wrote my speech then. I was like, I'm giving this speech on stage as a diamond. Had I known the physical anxiety and exhaust, I'm not kidding you, I thought I was going to have heart problems because I had worked it up for 5 years, and so I thought I was going to have heart problems. But it was such a massive dream of mine. I was willing to not sleep for 2 weeks. I was willing to I'm serious though. I was willing to go through all of that because it was the fulfillment of a dream I had had for 5 years. But it was a lot. When I was reading through all that, I'm like, I can so associate all these physical things. And I feel like knowing that now, when the physical things do start to come up, I can say to my brain, oh, I am willing to endure this for the end goal, or I'm not, it's not worth it. But
yeah. One of the big ones for me is being willing to admit that the work I'm putting in is probably not going to be good at first, and that it's going to have to get better with time. Because I want it to be right. I want it to be good and well thought out and perfect the first time. So I really resonated when he said that the first draft of anything is shit. That was one of his motivating quotes. And I'm like, that is helpful to me, because I have to be willing to know that I'm not going to be really great at this. I'm not going to be really great at coaching ACT or whatever my next step may be until I start learning, until I start adding in more skills and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, and then I'm going to feel gross trying to do them. So I also wrote on page 217 for like putting it down in black and white. He emphasizes again writing this all down. But I love that he talks about how it's been vastly more fulfilling than the 4 months I spent avoiding writing. How all the pain and the struggle and the frustration and the not believing in himself and all this head trash was way better than the time he spent trying to avoid doing it. And I mean, I can totally see that, because the time I spent avoiding the fact that I wasn't being a good leader and I wasn't doing the things felt terrible. And it feels way less terrible to put myself out there and show up for a call that like nobody's going to show up on, right? Like it is much easier. And I wrote down,
it lines up with your values.
Exactly, because I'm
doesn't line up with your values.
Exactly. And I wrote down, if Plexus ended today and I never hit diamond at all, I put, holy cow, all that I have gained is tremendous. If I never reach that official goal that I had for myself, all of this stuff in the meantime, I mean, like my health and growing as a leader and learning how to fail and going to therapy and gaining this community, like all of those things are so value driven for me that I would be sad. Holy cow, I would be super sad if Plexus ended tomorrow. But I would have gained all of these things along the way because I was living within my value as I was doing it. And so I think that that's a really good point. The willingness and action plan. I mean, I just have to do that. Like, I just need to write that down and over and over again. And I will be putting it in my passion planner at the beginning of the year. Like, what am I willing to do this year to move forward? Let's see.
Onward and upward.
That's right.
Notes on this one.
You what?
Did I have notes on this one?
Oh, I have notes too. What do you have?
Okay, well, I don't have anything that I really want to talk about until page 221.
Okay, well, 219 I underlined, commitment isn't about being perfect, always following through, or never going astray. Commitment means that when you do inevitably stumble or get off track, you pick yourself back up, you find your bearings, and you carry on in the direction you want to go. So many people fail once and never come back because they said, I failed. I would much rather you quit Plexus for 2 weeks, regather yourself, come back. We're in this business for a lifetime. I am not in this business for right now. I am not in this business to hit a goal. I am in this business because I value it, and we are here for a lifetime. And I think if I look at my business as I'm here for a lifetime, it allows me to be more values focused in what I'm doing. So when I fail, I'm able to get back on the horse because I'm there for my value, not because I'm there for a goal that I fail at, right? So anyway, I underlined that. Are you talking about the redefining success section?
Yeah. Well, in the one right above that, success is not final and failure is not fatal. Mm-hmm. It's the courage to continue that counts.
Mm-hmm.
The redefining success. Okay, so short story, because we learn through stories. Y'all know I have my freaking master's degree in offending people. It's like a gift. So I posted this meme.
I almost spit out my tea.
Being an 8-hole is Chris Casey taught me that, because he is also an 8 on the Enneagram. And I have discovered and can identify when I'm being an 8-hole and I need to backtrack and be more mindful of what I'm doing. But at the time I posted this picture, and I made an observation, a personal observation of how I personally had never seen anyone who is successful not return their shopping cart. Sunny, do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
I got ripped. And when I say, I mean, I had strangers ripping me apart on the internet. Well, I'm successful and I don't return my shopping cart and blah, 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 blah. And all of this stuff and everything. And I was like, well, maybe I should have put in my personal definition of success, because for me, it was a really healthy thing, because for me and my values and how my values line up with success, you return your shopping cart so it doesn't run into somebody's car. And I'm not saying you have to take it back into the store. There are designated receptacles in the parking lot in which carts go. But leaving them in a parking, like, to me, that lined up with my values. And to me, I was like, yes, this confirms I am in fact in the right. Because, man, it really upset some people. I mean, people were like, well, you know, if it's raining, and like they had all of these things. I'm not saying, I wasn't trying to say, you know, there's been a time when it poured down rain and I did not return my cart. However, generally it was something, but to me it was just very important. It's that success in life means living by your values. And so for me, as random as that is, for me, I returned my shopping cart to the receptacle because it's within my values, and because I saw with my own eyes my dad's brand new car off the lot. Off, like we drove it off the lot. He had just purchased it. It was his first brand new nice car. And we went to Sam's Club. And because he didn't want to get a dent in it, he kind of parked it farther away. And a cart ran right into it and put a giant dent into his brand new car. And so for me, it was this defining moment that successful people will return their cart, because when you don't, it could have a negative impact on someone's life and be hurtful. And so anyway, but for just the whole time I was reading this, plus this part, it says, of course, I've said it before, living by your values doesn't mean giving up your goals. It merely means shifting the emphasis so life becomes about appreciating what you have now, rather than always focusing on what you don't have. And this is where gratitude plays such a massive role in the overall happiness of our life, is when your gratitude, and I even put down a hashtag last 90 days, because that is a huge part of the last 90 days of the year, to write down something that you're grateful for every single day. And if you will do that for the last 90 days of the year, you will be starting 2020 off with such an amazing foundation of being so happy. Like, I hate using the word happy, but so happy with where you're at, because you will just abundantly see all the great things that are going on. And anyway, that's what I had about that. I got a lot from that, redefining success.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
I underlined a lot of it too. I love the fulfillment is here in this moment, anytime you act in line with your values. And I also love that you don't need someone to confirm that you're doing the right thing. You know, when you're acting on your values, that's enough. That's huge for me, because I am a big seeking affirmation person. I just need to know that things are good. And I realize that's a skill that I need to develop, is to be able to work independently and to trust my instincts, to trust me, because often I do not. And that's held me back in my business. That's held me back in being a leader many, many times. But if I'm acting with my value, I'm doing it right. I don't need somebody's approval, which is great. I love that. So that's what I underlined in that. Let's see. The first step, once you've gone off track, is to recognize it consciously, be fully present with what's happening. There is no way you can possibly alter the past. You have to just move forward. I think that's a good reminder also. And again, the try again, like you were talking about earlier, in order to achieve my goals, do I need to persist with my behavior or do I need to change it? Being adaptable in this business is key. I've talked about that. I think I talked about that on the last call or one of them. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And if it still isn't working, try something different. We have to be adaptable. An attitude of optimism, you just nailed that one, Ryan. Optimism and being grateful.
That choose to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's on page 225. That is so big for me because it talks a lot. This book talks a lot about the negative and the pain in life, because the reality is that it's there. And as much as we dislike it, like looking back at my life, the most difficult, hardest things I've ever been through is where I got the most growth, and that's what's molded me into what I am today. So if we can kind of really pay attention to our mindset when something is painful or hard or difficult, or the circumstances, if we can just say, okay, what can I do? What can I grow from? What can I learn from this opportunity? It kind of takes that horrible situation and can make it a really beautiful thing.
Yep. So I have more, and there's from the last chapter, A Meaningful Life, it goes back over diffusion and expansion and connection and observing self and values and committed action, and like recaps all of those things. And I like that he is, really pretty honest about the fact that you're going to forget what you learned in this book. There's going to be times when you're like, it's gone, and you've forgotten how to be mindful, and you've forgotten to not act on your thoughts, and that's totally normal. But I like that we can come back to this chapter and kind of refresh. It's just having that one chapter at the end, and maybe we'll just keep this on my bedside table, within easy reach, so that I can refocus on where I'm going. Like on 230, I underlined, develop the courage to solve those problems that can be solved, the serenity to accept those problems that cannot be solved, and the wisdom to know the difference. So the serenity prayer that we've all heard many times, or at least I have in social work world, and recovery world, it is applying ACT. If we just can at least remember the serenity prayer, maybe that's what I need to have on my bedside table to trigger me to come back to this kind of focus. But again, focusing on what we can control is a great place to come back to. Also, page 231, you have little control over your feelings, thoughts, memories, urges, sensations. You have no control over other people. You have no control over the world around you. And that's both incredibly overwhelming and also comforting at the same time, once I get what it means, once I get the process of how to deal with those thoughts and make room for them, it's less overwhelming. And then I encourage you guys to go back to the beginning, page 15, when we did the control of thoughts and feelings questionnaire, and just read through those and see where you're at now. See if you have made any difference, if it does feel easier to let the feelings be there, because I bet it is, if I had to guess. And I underlined a lot from the last kind of paragraph, the ancient Eastern saying, if you don't decide where you're going, you'll end up wherever you're heading. To live a meaningful life, you need directions. Your values are there, deep in your heart, to provide it. So connect with those values, use them for guidance, cultivate a sense of purpose, keep setting meaningful goals and pursue them vigorously. Appreciate what you have in your life right now. The past doesn't exist. It's nothing more than memories in the present. And the future doesn't exist. It's nothing more than thoughts and images in the present. The only time you ever have is in this moment. So make the most of it. Notice what's happening. Appreciate it in its fullness. And remember, life gives most to those who make the most of what life gives. So there you go. I get all the warm fuzzies when I read those last two little paragraphs. It's just, I get one of these, yeah, yes, I get it. So this is life. in all of its hardness and goodness, and it makes sense to me. This book and ACT makes sense to me, and they meld with my faith, and they seem practical. It's not something that like I read and go neat and throw it in like another. I feel like this is like practical stuff to take with me. And when I first started learning ACT, I knew it was a big deal because years later I'd find myself just coming back to like a small thing of it is what it is. I just have to remind myself it is what it is. In road rage, I'd have to remind myself that the person who just cut me off is not frustrated. I'm the one that's frustrated, and I'm the one controlling me right now, and I can choose whether to be frustrated or not. And just giving myself that power back in small ways in my life has led me down a different path than I think I would have been on had I not known about ACT in the first place. So recommend it to your friends. Also, tell your teams to go back and just, if they haven't read the book, tell them just to go back and watch the recordings. You know, like, I think they'll get something from it. Don't you guys? Like, even if they haven't read it, I think it's useful. So they'll all be up in one place, and they'll all be on my YouTube page. So it'll be easy enough to find. I've really loved doing this with you guys. It's been really value driven for me to do this. I'm glad you guys.
Thanks, Sunny, for having us do this. It was really, really good. Definitely for a control freak like me and a self-development junkie who reads massive amounts of self-development books and feeling really out of control because, you know, I still didn't like vegetables and I still had negative thoughts creeping in. This was very empowering to me. I loved it. So thank you for having us do it.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, have you finished listening to A Liberated Mind yet? Let's see. Maybe.
No, not completely.
Okay.
I mean,
Is it,
really does. It's a lot like, I mean, they're the same thing, so it's good.
Sorry, you probably can't hear me. It's very good, except for someone that just listens to Audible. I would suggest that book if they don't have time to read this one.
well, I'm definitely going to be diving into this one next.
Awesome.
So I'm excited. Thank you guys for doing this. I'm going to stop the recording.